Now, if you're lucky and wealthy enough to own a work by the controversial artist Damien Hirst, sell now. That's the advice of a prominent art critic and former gallery head. Julian Spalding says it's not that Hirst creates bad works of art, but rather that his pieces aren't art at all. Next week, a blockbuster exhibition of Damien Hirst's work opens at the Tate Modern. The gallery calling him one of the most influential artists of his generation, and his works iconic. It's the latest in 2 decades of accolades and headlines, starting 20 years ago when he famously pickled a shark in formaldehyde. He first moved on to paintings of spots and then to a £50 million diamond-encrusted skull. He's now considered a cultural ambassador for Britain.
Names like Adele in music, Damien Hirst in art, Stella McCartney in...
But now a pamphlet, unambiguously titled Con Art, Why You Ought to Sell Your Damien Hirsts While You Can, says the art world has been fooled. Works selling for millions are in fact subprime, claims the author, and you should get rid of them while you're still able. Well, a little earlier I spoke to Julian Spalding himself, who was in Inverness, and the art critic and art commissioning editor for the Times newspaper, Nancy Durant. Julian Spalding, you use the word worthless as a very strong word to use in the context of a man who has sold pieces for many millions of pounds. Why worthless?
It's worthless. I think Damien Hirst's work is worthless as a work of art. He's not an artist. He shouldn't be in the Tate. He's not an artist. And therefore it's worthless. His work is worthless artistically. And therefore it has to be worthless financially, because people are only spending money on Damien Hirst because they think it's a work of art. And if it isn't, then they're wasting their money.
There's always the possibility, Nancy Durant, people actually like sharks in tanks or whatever.
Yes, that is true, but I think...
Is it art?
Well, yes, I think it is. I think that anything which deals with, which an artist says is art, is put in a gallery, but deals with questions of the human condition and makes me respond in a way to questions of life and death and all of those important things, I think it's a work of art. Whether you think it's a good work of art is an entirely different matter.
Isn't that the issue, Julian Spalding, that you can take a view on whether it's good or bad art, but you can't really question whether it's art, can you?
Of course you can, because that's exactly what Nancy has just revealed. She said all these profound things that she thinks about when she looks at the shark, but they're all in her mind. They're not there. Art has to be made, art has to be created. Artists have to communicate something profound and meaningful. If it's all in your mind, then it doesn't exist.
How can you tell it's all in my head? It must be being communicated somehow.
No, but you are one of the people around the emperor, dressing him in elaborate clothes. There isn't anything in there. You can't tell by looking at Damien Hirst's shark that it belongs to Damien Hirst or that Damien Hirst has done anything to it. He hasn't.
Well, we've emphasised, obviously, the shark, and probably we could talk about the cow. But when all's said and done, there's much more to Damien Hirst's show coming up in the Tate than those 2 items. There is.
There is a lot of... there's a huge amount. I mean, Damien Hirst has made masses and masses of art. I'm not sure, and I'm sure that Julian would agree with me, that all of them, even the ones that are in the Tate, will stand up in 100 years as very valuable pieces of art. But I think that some of them will. I still maintain that some of the early works, like 1,000 Years, which was the head of the cow in the tank with the flies being zapped and feeding on the cow, I still think that is a magnificent piece of sculpture. And I entirely disagree with you, Julian, that it's not art.
No, but who wants to look at it? And who wants to look at a putrefying corpse?
You know perfectly well that vast numbers of people are going to go to the Tate and look at this stuff, and vast numbers of people have already been to look at it.
And lots of people probably didn't want to look at Bacon's wonderful, horrific paintings. They make you very uncomfortable.
Yes, but they're about suffering and about the suffering that we can share and feelings that we can share. Damien Hirst has added nothing to that putrefaction scene.
Well, I think the point that you really make, and this is where I wonder whether you've left art criticism and entered the stock market, and that is the value of them. Who cares about the value of them? It is surely the intrinsic artistic quality that is the issue, not whether they're worth selling or not.
My point is that they're worthless as art and worthless financially.
actually, he's probably right. I mean, what these people have got their stuff at the top of the market. It's hard to imagine it's going to get any more valuable.
I absolutely agree with you. I think a huge amount of Damien Hirst's work will not retain its value at all. Most of the spot paintings, I think, I mean, they're really essentially just, I mean, it's just wallpaper.
Well, so however reluctantly you find yourself having to agree with him.
No, I do agree up to a point. And I also think that Damien Hirst's work, one thing that interests me is the fact that I don't know of one young artist who is obviously influenced by him, and that is not a good sign for his economic value in the future. However, I do still maintain that conceptual art can be art because it can deal with these questions.
And on our website is an attack on Damien Hirst, an attack on the entire history of idea-based art. If you want the answer to that, you can go to channel4.com/news.